before it melts in your mouth, before it's wrapped in its famous purple foil, before it becomes the bar you break apart without thinking. Dairy Milk. Chocolate begins its life in a place you might not expect, a cold, misty morning on a farm. The story doesn't start in a factory or a lab, it starts in a field, a real one, with cows, grass, mud, and the quiet rhythm of rural life. Every day across the rolling hills of Britain and Ireland, thousands of dairy cows are milked. This milk isn't just any milk. It's full-fat, rich, and carefully tested to meet one specific standard, the Cadbury standard. Cadbury doesn't compromise. It doesn't rely on powdered ingredients or artificial shortcuts. It demands real milk, fresh milk, because it knows something most people forget. Great chocolate doesn't start with chocolate. It starts with the ingredients no one talks about. Let's break it down. As the cows are milked, large stainless steel tankers wait just outside the barns. The milk is pumped directly into these refrigerated tanks, cooled instantly to keep it from spoiling. Then, the trucks begin their journey toward Bournville, a town in the West Midlands of England that has become synonymous with Cadbury chocolate. Once the milk arrives at the factory, it undergoes a transformation that is part science, part craft. First, the milk is pasteurized, heated just enough to kill any bacteria but gently enough to preserve its full taste. Then comes condensation, removing the water content without stripping away flavor. This process thickens the milk, giving it the rich, dense body needed for the next steps. After that, sugar is added, not dumped in randomly, measured, weighed, mixed with precision. This sugar isn't there just to sweeten. It balances the richness of the milk and lays the groundwork for the chocolate's final profile. What's created here is known as milk crumb. It's not chocolate yet, but it's close. It's a smooth, caramel-colored mixture that smells warm, creamy, and just slightly sweet. And this milk crumb is sacred at Cadbury. It's what gives dairy milk its signature flavor. Other brands might skip this. They might use milk powder and call it a day. Cadbury doesn't. They slow down, take their time, and create this base from scratch. At this stage, if you tasted the milk crumb, you'd recognize something. Not quite chocolate, but something familiar, something comforting. But this is only half the story. Because to make real chocolate, you need more than milk. You need cocoa. Dark, bitter, powerful cocoa. And that, unlike the milk, doesn't grow in English fields. To find the second half of the equation, we're heading thousands of miles south, to a place with red earth, humid forests, and a fruit most people have never seen, the cocoa pod. Now the journey leaves the quiet farm roads and heads deep into the heart of West Africa. If milk is the heart of dairy milk, then cocoa is its soul. To find it, we leave behind the green fields of Europe and head to the tropical belt of West Africa, places like Ghana and Ivory Coast, where the equator kisses the land and where the air is thick with heat, scent, and life. Here, deep within small, family-owned farms, cocoa begins its life inside a strange-looking fruit, the cocoa pod. These pods don't look like anything you'd expect to find in a chocolate bar. They're oval, ridged, and come in shades of orange, yellow, red, or even purple. Inside each pod are 20 to 50 cocoa beans, coated in a sweet, white pulp. But the path from pod to chocolate is anything but simple. Once the pods are harvested by hand, using machetes and carried in woven baskets, the real work begins. The beans are scooped out and placed in shallow wooden boxes or covered with banana leaves. And then comes one of the most critical yet least known steps in chocolate making: fermentation. For 5 to 7 days, the beans are allowed to ferment naturally. It's messy, it's smelly, it's essential. This process removes the sticky pulp and activates enzymes inside the beans that begin developing flavor. Without it, cocoa would be flat, sour, and lifeless. Once fermentation is complete, the beans are spread out under the sun to dry, often on large wooden platforms, turned by hand several times a day. They dry slowly over several days, darkening in color and concentrating in flavor. At this point, the beans are bagged and shipped thousands of tons each year to chocolate factories across the world, including Cadbury's own processing facilities. But raw cocoa beans can't just be dumped into a chocolate mixer. They need to be roasted. Once at the factory, the beans are cleaned and sorted, then roasted at carefully controlled temperatures. Roasting brings out the deep, rich aroma we associate with chocolate. It also causes the thin outer shell of each bean to crack and fall away. What's left is called the nib, the purest part of the cocoa bean, where all the flavor lives. These nibs are then ground into a thick, dark brown substance, cocoa liquor. Despite the name, cocoa liquor contains no alcohol. It's not liquid in the way you'd expect either. It's more like a warm, oily paste, and it tastes intense, bitter, sharp, pure. From here, cocoa liquor can go in many directions. Pressed to make cocoa powder and butter, refined into couverture chocolate, or, in the case of dairy milk, blended with milk crumb to create something completely unique. Now, for the first time, the milk and the cocoa meet. One soft and creamy, the other bold and earthy. candy. Together, they're ready to become chocolate, but not just any chocolate. They still have a long way to go through rollers, mixers, and machines that push flavor and texture to their limit. The raw ingredients are now assembled. The symphony is about to begin. Now that milk and cocoa have finally met, something remarkable is starting to form. Not quite chocolate yet, but a dark, thick paste that smells familiar. It's sweet, it's earthy, it's rich. But if you tried to bite it now, you'd regret it, because texture matters. And in chocolate, texture is everything. At this stage, what you have is a gritty, oily mass. The flavor is close, but the mouthfeel? Far from ready. So begins the next phase, one that transforms this rough mix into the smooth, melt-on-your-tongue sensation dairy milk is famous for. First comes refining. The chocolate mass is fed through a series of enormous steel rollers. These rollers don't just flatten, they grind. They crush the particles of sugar, milk crumb, and cocoa down to microscopic sizes. We're talking below 30 microns, might thinner than a strand of hair. Why? Because your tongue can't feel anything smaller than that. Go bigger, and the chocolate will feel sandy. Stay below that threshold and it feels like silk. This stage is like tuning a guitar. Every adjustment affects the final performance, and Cadbury tunes it well. Once refined, the chocolate still isn't ready. It's dry, it's powdery, it lacks fluidity, it needs heat, movement, time, it needs conching. The conching machine is unlike anything else in the process. It's part blender, part oven, part sculptor. Inside, massive arms churn the chocolate for hours, sometimes 8, 10, or even 12 straight. The mixture is heated just enough to keep it molten, but not enough to burn off aroma. The constant motion breaks down acidic notes, balances bitterness, and releases hidden flavors locked in the cocoa. During conching, the final flavor of the chocolate is sculpted. It's here that dairy milk earns its soft, sweet, rounded profile. It's also where cocoa butter is carefully added to give the bar its iconic snap, its shine, and its slow, luxurious melt. By the end of this process, the chocolate has transformed. No longer a rough mixture, no longer raw. Now it's smooth, glossy, and intensely aromatic. You could dip a spoon into it. You could smell it and recognize it instantly. It's no longer just a blend of ingredients. It's chocolate, but it's not ready to be eaten just yet, because one final transformation still remains. One that turns liquid into solid. That step is called tempering, and it's the difference between average chocolate and perfection. The chocolate is now rich, smooth, and fluid. It smells like childhood. It looks like melted luxury, but it can't be poured into molds just yet, because liquid chocolate, if handled incorrectly, becomes a disaster the moment it cools. It turns dull, it gets streaks. Worse, it crumbles instead of snapping, and melts too quickly in your hands. To fix that, chocolatiers use one final weapon: tempering. Tempering isn't about taste, it's about structure. It's a precise manipulation of heat and time, designed to align the crystals inside cocoa butter. Because yes, chocolate has crystals, and they come in 6 different forms. Only one of those forms, Form 5, gives chocolate the shiny appearance, the clean snap, and the stable structure you expect from a high-quality bar. So how do you get there? By carefully heating the chocolate to a high temperature, around 45 degrees Celsius, to melt all the crystals. Then cooling it down to around 27 degrees Celsius, which encourages the right crystals to begin forming. And finally, reheating it slightly to stabilize those crystals without melting them again. It's a delicate dance, a chemical ballet. Too hot and you destroy everything. Too cold and you get fat bloom, a white chalky layer that ruins the look and feel. In industrial chocolate making, machines handle this process automatically, with sensors, feedback systems, and computer controls to monitor every degree. But it still requires calibration, still needs human oversight, because tempering is the difference between average and premium, between a forgettable bite and a dairy milk moment. Once tempered, the chocolate is no longer just smooth, it's sharp. It gleams under factory lights, it flows like velvet, and most importantly, it's finally ready to take shape. Now, for the first time, that chocolate can be poured into molds. The signature rectangular bars with their curved edges and subtle dairy milk logo embossed on each square. But even now, the job isn't done, because turning liquid into solid requires more than just patience. It requires cooling and lots of control. The filled molds are sent through cooling tunnels, long, refrigerated conveyor belts that gradually reduce the temperature of the chocolate. Cool it too fast, and it cracks. Too slow, and it loses its snap. The timing has to be perfect, the temperature curve exact, and when the bars emerge at the other end of the tunnel, they're finally solid. Not just solid, perfect, glossy, uniform, crisp, everything a dairy milk bar should be. Each bar is inspected for weight, shape, and surface quality. Some factories even use laser scanners to detect microscopic flaws. Only the best make it to the next stage. The rest are melted down and recycled, because in this world, good enough isn't. The chocolate has been tempered to perfection. It flows like silk, gleams like glass, and smells like memory. Now, finally, it's ready to take form. Inside the factory, lines of molds await, polished, precision-made, identical to the last millimeter. Each one shaped to form the signature Dairy Milk bar, rectangular, gently rounded edges, divided into squares with the Cadbury logo pressed into the surface. The tempered chocolate is poured, or rather injected, into these molds with exacting precision. Not a drop more, not a drop less. This isn't guesswork, it's engineering. But even now, things can go wrong. Air bubbles, inconsistent fill, improper settling. To avoid this, the molds are vibrated rapidly. Tiny shockwaves shake the chocolate, releasing trapped air and ensuring an even, flawless surface. And then it moves on to the next line, packaging. Here, machines operate with mechanical choreography. Bars glide down the belt, lined like soldiers. They pass through scanners, checking for cracks, weight irregularities, or visual defects. Any bar that fails the test is removed instantly. There's no tolerance for imperfection. The approved bars move on to wrapping. First, they're enveloped in a tight layer of foil. This seals in freshness, protects the chocolate from air and moisture, and maintains its glossy finish. Then comes the iconic outer wrap, that rich Cadbury purple, unmistakable even from across a supermarket aisle. But this isn't just branding. That purple signifies something. It says this isn't just chocolate, it's dairy milk. The wrapped bars are boxed, coated, dated, and stacked onto pallets. From here, they'll travel across cities, countries, continents. Inside trucks stored in temperature-controlled containers, these bars begin the final leg of their journey, not through machines, but through roads and airways all the way to stores, vending machines, and eventually your hands. But there's still one more part of the story left, one more chapter that no machine controls. Because in the end, chocolate is not just made in factories, it's made complete by what happens when you eat it. So now you know how it's made. From cocoa plantations kissed by tropical rains, to giant steel vats humming with melted dreams, to precise molds, flawless packaging, and silent conveyor belts whispering their chocolate secrets. But here's the thing, you don't fall in love with dairy milk because of its production line. You don't crave it because it's perfectly tempered. You love it because of how it makes you feel. It's the way the foil crinkles in your fingers, the cool snap of the first break, the way it starts to melt the second it hits your tongue. Smooth, velvety, unapologetically creamy. It's nostalgia wrapped in purple. It's comfort in bite-sized pieces. It's the first chocolate bar your mom ever gave you, or the one you shared with your crush at school, or the one you bought at 2 a.m. because life was hard and chocolate didn't ask questions. Behind all the machines, science, and precision, there's something that can't be manufactured: emotion. Dairy milk is iconic, not because of how it's made, but because of what it means. It's a mood, it's a memory, it's a moment. So next time you unwrap a bar, know that you're not just eating chocolate, you're tasting a story, decades in the making, crafted in silence, perfected in steel, but made real by you. If that journey made you hungry for more, hit that subscribe button. We've got countless untold stories cooking behind the scenes.